everybody. You're all in line for coffee. I don't blame you. It's okay. My name is Catherine Crook, and I work for a company called Quanta Telecom, but I've had a rocky little bit of a few years getting there. I also teach the intermediate and the intro GIS at Seattle University for our GIS certificate program. So I'm used to talking to people in a room who are not really paying attention to me. And looking at screens and other things. So don't worry about it. I will pretend like it's not happening. Lots of practice. So anyway, little bit of a background here of what we do. I worked for Quanta Services, which is it's a very large company, and I work for Quanta Telecom. But previously, I did 20 years in local government and port districts as a GIS manager. And then I got headhunted sometime around 2022, I think, 2020, yeah. And then I joined a startup called HexMAPP. That's the progression there. HexMAPP to Quanta Telecom Solutions. So we were acquired in a rough, bumpy way after we developed this application, and then they came after us. And then words were used in text messages. It was kind of like Theranos a little bit. Yeah, we had like a crazy CEO who drank expensive wine and went missing and ended up in Mexico. Like one day there's going to be a book. Anyway, a text message came across my phone that basically said, "We're sending you a life raft, get in." That's literally on my phone to this day. So we developed a little small team of us, maybe 5 of us at the time. With our C-suite, there was 9 of us, and we created this application. And we were acquired by Quanta. They are a Fortune 200 company, so they sit at 184. Their last quarter readings came out last week for their financials. They made $7.63 billion. It's a lot of money. Money I don't understand. Anyway, we transitioned from a startup to an enterprise broadband analytical platform in like that amount of time. We went from this to this. And there's, out of 9 of us, 3 of us are left. They got rid of 6 immediately. So they just came in and said, you get to stay, you get to stay, you get to stay, run. We're watching you. And then they came in and they were like, we don't even know what you do. After it settled, and I just told the team of 3 people left, I just said, hey, we're just going to hold on to this lifeboat for a little bit and see where it goes. If not, we're all going to jump ship and go find other jobs. We're all employable. Anyway, we integrated our QTS workflows from market analysis, planning, and cost modeling for a fiber design, right? So we do analytics for fiber routing so that ISPs, internet service providers, and large companies with a lot of money, investment companies, want to put their money into fiber builds across this country. So the reason that that's important right now, and I'm so glad I'm on the team and I made it as far as I have, is the broadband availability in the US is inconsistent and fragmented in a way that we sitting here don't even understand because we get so used to having it every day. There are people that don't have access to it. That means they can't do their homework, they can't get their medical records, they can't do a job interview on Zoom, they can't work from home. There's so many things that affect their day-to-day life, right? But we kind of forget about them because we are here and we can plug in anytime, anywhere, anytime we want, right? So we are part of that kind of like grand picture, and they have many communities that rely on this, and it's proprietary tools and closed systems limit collaboration and scalability. There's a lot of people scared about how to expand past what they know and how they've been living. So our tool hopefully helps mitigate that in some way when we get there. So there's a bead and FCC fabric. So the FCC controls, and right now it's, as we heard earlier, it's a bit rocky, right? There's some information there and then all of a sudden stuff goes missing, right? So the FCC hired a company called CostQuest that is also operates here out of Seattle, and they feed BSL data broadband serviceable locations, and they are the ones that make the mapping fabric for the country for us to check in to see where people live and what they do, if they have access. The BEAD program is a federal program that will provide, right now it's kind of a free-for-all a little bit right now. It's almost $43 billion that is going to be released, well, it has been released. We were just informed this morning that California has been told not to put their program live as of this morning because they're not ready for them yet. So there's a lot of politics at play in this space, and it's getting really exhausting. So the BEAD program is putting all this money out there, and guess who wants it? Large companies, right? And large equity firms and finance companies who want to fund to make more money, to fund to make more money, to make more money, right? And so our tool kind of helps do a return on investment on all this. And I just took a quick screenshot this morning. The link's there, but I won't go there because I'm not getting out of this to go anywhere else. I don't trust it right now. So anyway, you can see we build in the hexagons too, but so does the FCC. And you can see the gray. This is Oregon, Idaho, Washington, bit of Wyoming, and Montana. The West is the worst. Even though we think we're not, we live in little tiny bubbles that are pockets here and there. But the majority of it have no access to it. So if you were in and around those islands in Idaho or in Yakima, the mountains are there too, but lots of places just don't have accessibility. So what do? We built a tool that allows you to determine project feasibility. So they come to us and they say, tell us if it's even feasible. Up until this point, there wasn't a way to do return on investment. And so we use a lot of data sources, a lot of open source data sources to feed our tool so that we can tell it, hey, is it profitable for you to be building here first? Maybe you should go over here first and start over here and not over here. A lot of times we call broadband fiber the utility, the unutility utility, right? It's there, we don't really realize it. It's not like water, sewer, electricity, where we think it's kind of got some guardrails around it. This is the Wild West. And I have seen and heard some things in meetings that you just get shocked at, right? They don't understand the landscape. They don't understand what's happening out there. And so that's why I kind of fall back on my government side of me, because I'm always like, that's not how that works. And I must say that all day long, right? And so we have this tool that allows them to kind of say, well, should we put, like right now, I'm working on a big project, and believe it or not, it has the capacity. There's 1.6 million locations, and it has a return on investment of $7 billion, right? You'd want to know where your $7 billion is going. So we're kind of like figuring out for them, and I won't give you the name, but you know it. And they're trying to figure out where that is, right? So what do they receive from this? Well, they receive the interactive webbing application that goes along with a login, and then they get an output, and they still, because they're ISPs and then they're in the fiber world, and we can't get them out of this, but they want a PDF. There's an entire interface in front of them that they can interact with and move things around and get really in depth, and there's like scales and things to change, and nope, give me a PDF. And you're like, okay, you get a PDF. Okay, what do? We kind of take a lot of data automation, and then we kind of took analytics and modeling, and some of the proprietary pieces that are kind of up in the air right now are our financial model. That is the hot issue that I'm dealing with currently. We use QGIS for visualization, but then we output into Foursquare, and that accepts our data, our charts, and everything else, and so that renders back into our application. We use H3 for consistent spatial indexing, like we had heard earlier today, so that seems to be the norm, right? We use MLab, OpenStreetMaps, and Census data for transparency. I'm on the books always saying, if we're in court, what can we point to? Where did you get it from? Does it come from authoritative data sources? Because we will get asked that. So if you just got somebody sitting at a desk making stuff up, that doesn't sit in court very well. So we go from Python to H3, then we use the open data, then we put into the HexMAPP analysis, and our application has 3 phases. With phase 1 goes into the Google Cloud and puts everything into buckets for us. Then we can go in, grab the data out of the buckets. We can put it into QGIS if we see anomalies and that it's not really rendering and doing what we want it to do. A lot of the ISPs will ask us, hey, we already have backbone, which is like their main fiber components in that area. Could you please not include that? Well, then you got to reroute all that, and you got to do it all again, and it just gets complicated. So this is kind of a quick screenshot of what we have and what it looks like a project. So one of our locations is Santa Rosa, Florida. We have lots and lots of locations. It's just one of them. And I put the entire accounts listed there. And then we have analytics, financial scenarios, project details, assets, and logs. We weren't tracking anything before, and so now we track absolutely everything that comes in out. There is a team of 4 of us that do this, and 2 are devs, and 2 of us are operations and analytics. So you wear a lot of hats, and you do a lot of business, and it takes a lot of organization. So what does this look like? Because we had that Theranos type CEO, who's not yet in jail, but watch out for that, because he just declared bankruptcy in the middle of October. Anyway, he was asking us to get $1.2 million a year of data sources. And Ookla, those of you that are aware, that's the broadband kind of like every time you do an Ookla test, they track that data, and then they sell it to me for $560,000 a year. Right? So you're handing it over for free. We do this over and over and over again. We don't realize we're handing our data over, and then they package it up and then they sell it out, right? So that's what my data sources running this small team were at $1.2 million a year. The first thing they said when we went over to Quanta on this little tiny life raft, and I knew that was going to be a hot number. And I knew they were going to come after us and say, I know we make a lot of money, but you're not going to spend that kind of money. So I cut and slashed, and we got us down to 520 per year. But I had to ask them, is your precision, or is your accuracy and precision, or is your money saving? And they went money saving. And so their accuracy fell. But they seem okay with it, because they don't know what we do. So some of the data sources we use. So we use OpenStreetMaps. So we use roads, right-of-way, utility corridors, building footprints, points of interest, local jurisdictional boundaries, including city and county. A lot of this stuff is out there, and it's in OpenStreetMaps, and so we just kind of data scrape and pull it all in. We use census data for our demographics, which is also kind of attached to our OpenStreetMap data. We used the U.S. Census Bureau and American Community Survey, that most of you are familiar with, for our population, housing, income. And then we use HUD Location Affordability Index for transportation and cost relationships. Chances are they're going to want to route somewhere where they're going to pay their bill. So those are the hex bins that we go to first. Those end up being green. Because people who want to pay, because they have better demographics sitting in that hex bin, do a better job at paying the bill. So then we end up going, okay, go that route first. A lot of large companies come in and they just pull permits like crazy, because that's what I saw on the government side. And then they hold out those permits for 3 years. That locks that area out, so no other ISP can come in. And so it's kind of like a turf war through the permitting space that we're not really watching. Okay, then we have the MLab, which is a measurement lab, which is an open internet performance and latency metric. But they do it in a bizarre grid system. So it's as close as we can get, nowhere near as good as Ookla, can give us a point of where you did it and how long you did it for. But MLab gives us enough information. And what we have on the moment anybody from the inside finds out what we do, they'll be like, what? Why aren't you using Ookla? So far, that hasn't happened. The FCC Broadband Data Collection, there's a public source and there's a private source. So you can pay for it or you can get it public. And so we currently consume the public one. And then we have the NTIA, which is kind of like the broadband national transportation area. And then we just recently imported USDA soils, because if you're going to go build, they'll want to know what kind of soil type that is. And that in itself has caused more, like, they're so happy that they got, so I was like, it's sitting out in the public, like anybody could have it. But they're just like, this is amazing. What, how, I can't believe soils is on here. And you're like, do you know what else we've put in here? And you're going on and on about soils, right? So again, we have the MLab, OpenStreetSource, US Census, the FCC Broadband Fabric. We have Cotality. I switched data sources. We were using Precisely. That was $600,000 a year. Then we went over to Cotality. They're a very good relationship, and they're doing exactly what we need them to do, because they're new at this and they want to do better. And then we're doing custom layers for cost modeling, competition, and feasibility. And that's kind of what we call our secret sauce. That's crazy amounts of spreadsheets that we now have an AI company looking at. We use Google Cloud, Google BigQuery, and then we kind of do this through, so they have the area, the service addresses, and the route maps. And then the benefits. So the problems with this is, nobody's going to drive or put in fiber to a rural that they have to go 10 miles down to get one customer. That's why the $42 billion is there. But is that what it's going to be used for? No, because we just did a project with Marin County, and everybody's familiar with Marin County. That is where George Lucas lives. Right? And so they took $11 million of FAA funds and put in their broadband mapping system, right? And they hired people to do it for them. The other issue we're noticing is that they need to start adopting fiber as a utility. Some counties are doing that, not all are doing that. And so when they start realizing that we can help them decide if they should bring it on as their own utility, we've now done about 6 counties throughout the United States that have converted them to taking the fiber in-house. That wasn't the outcome we were anticipating, but that kind of is what happened. So anyway, takeaways, lots of takeaways. We have challenges, issues with accuracy levels. We are one of 2 systems that can do this in the country right now, and the other one doesn't quite do it the way we do it. We do it a little more robustly, and we do a lot more QA, QC than they do. And that's it. Is there any questions? Yes?
How quickly has your data availability gone down in the last year? Federal sources.
So the data bill?
No, availability.
Data availability of what we have access to. There's a lot of things that have gone kind of missing, right? Like some demographic data has just disappeared on us all of a sudden. There's, we pay for our address points and things like that, so that hasn't really gone anywhere. We're relying on some open source things, so I'd say 20% has gone missing, but we're having to pay to bring it back. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Question? No? Okay, thank you.